So hello and welcome to the Lewis Nicholls Show. And I'm really excited to bring on my next guest. It's the brilliant Dean Smith. It's great to get you on for a solo chat. We were just saying how chaotic that reunion was a couple of months ago, having everyone on. So thank you for coming back.
Oh, my pleasure. It was great fun to have everyone there. Was that a couple of months ago already?
Yeah, over 2 months. 2 months ago that we did that. And I mean, it was just for you. It must be weird because I know that you knew the majority that were on the call, and it's been years since you've even seen some of them or spoke to them. So it must have been kind of a surreal moment for you.
Yeah, it was. But what it did was it just reminded me how much fun it was to shoot that show. It just reminded me of the kind of the larks that we used to have in the green room or in the canteen, or if we were out on location. I knew pretty much everyone. I think there was a couple from the earlier series who I didn't know, but I know their work obviously because they're good actors. They're around all the time. But it was great. You did a fabulous job. It was like herding cats. You were trying to just shepherd people's energy and attention all over the place. It was great fun to watch.
I mean, I wanted to ask you because I mean we've asked everyone that came on just kind of where their love and their passion for acting, came from. So for you, was that something that you were always interested as a child and growing up?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I wanted to be a footballer, and it was quite clear early on that I wasn't good enough for that. When I was about 11, 12, I was pretty good. And then when everyone started to get kind of big and ugly and wanted to kick people, I didn't have the aggression for it at all. So I suddenly failed in all the Leeds leagues and everything. But the way that I played football was like a performance. I like to get on the ball and try long passes and even as a 10, 11-year-old, I was trying stupid stuff. And I think the leap from football to acting and performance felt quite a small gap because there's still an audience there. And the more I think about this, actually, I used to play football with my dad. My dad used to take me to football, and I used to go to an amateur dramatics, I don't know what they call group with my mum. So it was basically I would spend time with my dad, play football, spend time with my mum acting, and very lucky for me, I managed to forge a career out of one of those, which is great because not many people are able to kind of get up every morning and do exactly what they love. But I'm very blessed indeed.
I mean, was Waterloo Road kind of your first break on television, or did you have kind of experience on television before, going on Waterloo Road?
I had I joined a drama group in Leeds called the Television Workshop. It was an ITV run, ITV funded group. They auditioned 1,000 kids across Leeds, and they picked 10 of us to be in this little drama group, along with two that they had in Nottingham and Birmingham. Now, the Nottingham Television Workshop has produced all kinds of actors. Chanel Creswell from This Is England, Joe Dempsey, Jack O'Connell, who else has been there? All kinds of people. Samantha Morton back in the day, like loads and loads and loads of fabulous actors. And so this Leeds workshop that I went to suddenly just had this great notoriety around it. And so they had agents that would come and watch the shows that we were doing, and I got an agent. In fact, before I got an agent, I'd done 2 jobs unrepresented. I'd done an online soap set at a bus stop called Dylan Ogden when I was 15. And that was great fun. It was 10 episodes of just me and 3 other actors stood around basically improvising around loads of like school drama type things. And then I did a film with Stephen Graham, again, before I had representation, called Away Days, which was like a rugby hooligan film. And then when I had an agent, the same casting director who cast Away Days, Michelle Smith, rung my agent and said, we'd like to see Dean for this job. I had one audition and they said it'd gone very well. I had another audition, and whilst I was on the motorway coming home, I had a voicemail saying that I'd got the job. And I was 18. I was supposed to go to university, but I went to the University of Waterloo Road instead and learnt how to act there, really. It was great fun.
I mean, Waterloo Road was, I mean, we spoke to so many people and they've said it was a life-changing show for them because it really was the biggest show on BBC. You couldn't get any bigger. So when that opportunity came about for you, what were your thoughts? Because you joined when it was well established and hugely popular. So that must have been kind of daunting because you knew you were already going into this hugely popular show.
Yeah, I think the advantage that I had was that I'd never seen it. So I'd heard of it. I knew a lot about it. Some people from school had talked about it. You know, a lot of chatter in school was about Waterloo Road, but I'd never seen it for some reason. I think I used to play football on a Wednesday night or something like that, and so I didn't feel any pressure. I was excited to go in and meet Neil Morrison, who I'd watched forever. I was excited to go in and meet Katie Carmichael, who ended up playing my mum. I was a big fan of hers when she was in Spaced with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. And so I was just more like giddy to get there and to sort of start playing. But I think that's the ignorance of youth in it. I think I was just kind of like, well, it'll be fine. I'll just turn up and do some acting and everything will be cool. I think if I was going into something as established now, in fact, a few years ago, I joined the cast of Last Tango in Halifax and I was bricking it because it really felt like, oh, I've got to really come and hit the ground running with this. Whereas the Waterloo Road thing was like, nah, cool, let's play, let's have a go. It was, I was probably a bit too blasé about it, but it went well. It turned out well.
What was it like working with, I mean, you mentioned Neil Morrison, of course, an absolute legend of an actor, Men Behaving Badly, Bob the Builder. So what was it like actually meeting him for the first time? And what was your working relationship like with him? Did he become someone like, you know, a mentor to you?
I wanted him to become a mentor, but he didn't want that to happen. Not in like, he just was very, he could be quite grumpy in a very charming way. He would complain about everything again in a very charming way. Oh, it's too hot, it's too cold. What are we shooting this scene for? Why can't we do this? And so I think I wanted that arm around the shoulder, and I didn't get it until one scene when all of the working relationship that we'd had up until that point came to a point. I mean, don't get me wrong, me and him got on really well, really well. And what was nice about Neil is he treated everyone like they were his mates. So there wasn't, just because he was playing a teacher and I was playing a student and vice versa, there wasn't anything different. But there's a scene when, I think it's in episode 11 of series 4, where my character Philip has been left by his mum. His mum's just buggered off somewhere because she's been outed as being a bigamist.
Yeah.
And there's a scene, it's still on my show reel, I think, actually. I should probably get rid of it. It's 14 years old. But there's a scene where Philip is sat in the cooler and he is just in floods of tears because nobody likes him. And it's very true. Like, nobody liked him. Everyone was leaving him. And the scene was with me and Neil. And I did a take, which was really cool. I could feel as an actor, I thought, oh, this is really cool. And afterwards, Neil came up to me and gave me a little squeeze on the shoulder. And he went, and the BAFTA goes too. And that was all he said. And he clearly joking, but it was just such a lovely, like, little acknowledgement that, oh, this young actor's done a nice take. And it was just that little bit of praise that I was like, oh, thank you, Mr. Morrissey. Thank you very much.
Well, I mean, I felt, because you were a fantastic actor yourself, but you were surrounded by some of the strongest actors in the show. And Eva, I mean, just another one. She incredible. And I mean, you only have to look on social media when you talk about Waterloo Road. She's loved. So what was it like working with Eva? Because she was my favorite head teacher in the show. And I know she was for a lot of people. So did you get on really well with Eva, you know, too?
Incredibly so. She was so lovely. She was so kind. She's nuts, is Eva Pope. She is absolutely nuts. Her energy, she's mad. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen any like blooper reels and stuff that the DVD would hold, would just be full of just Eva pulling strange faces or just making strange noises. That was just how she worked. But a proper professional, she just switched it straight on as soon as the cameras were rolling. But she was great fun. She was so good. And very encouraging of all the young actors, and just really lovely to have around. I don't have a bad word to say about Eva Pope. She was just so welcoming. Like what I wanted Neil to be like, Eva was like. And again, no shade to Neil because that's just him. But Eva really put her arm around and just really welcomed me. And we had some cool scenes, some really cool scenes. And she used to love it if I would not improvise, but if I would play with some different choices and stuff around the laxative in the brownie stuff that me and Eva shot. There was so many moments there where I was making her laugh because she was like, "Are you really going to do it like that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think so." We just have a good laugh about it.
Well, I'm hoping we can persuade her to come on the show. I know she's very private and doesn't do interviews, so I'm working on it. But I mean, your character was so, bless him. I mean, you felt sorry for him at times. He really had it hard. He just wanted to have friends, and I mean, when you look to the roots of this character, there is a sadness there. You know, he was neglected by, like you said, by his mum. He hasn't got that father figure around, so it kind of explains why sometimes he is slightly awkward and does the things that he does. And I think you portrayed that incredibly.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I mean, it's something that I myself in my life have felt a little bit. I mean, I'm a very confident, outgoing adult now, but when I was and as a teenager as well, but there was still a part of me that kind of didn't feel like I fit in because my a lot of my school friends, well, in fact, all of my school friends now have what I would call proper jobs. So they're not actors; they're bankers and work in PR and all this kind of stuff. And I love them very, very dearly. These are my people. But my pursuit of self-employment and being on the telly just made me feel a little bit like I stood out a little bit. So I just kind of channeled that really. And I'd never been a particular fan of my face or my body or my looks. And going into something like Waterloo Road where you've got Adam Thomas and Tatcha Newall and all of these gorgeous lads there, it was very easy to feel like I could be insignificant in their world. They were lovely guys. Like that was just me doing acting bits. But it was really lovely to be able to play that vulnerability, especially because his vulnerability actually stems from him putting himself out there and trying to be mates with people. Like if he didn't try to do that, he wouldn't have a vulnerability. He'd just be the weird kid. But because he really tried to engage and just got taken for granted and people taking the piss out of him, that was what was really fun to play, because characters that are always on the back foot like Philip are so much fun to play. So much fun.
Well, you said he was fun to play. What stands out for you as your funniest scene? So when you think back to your time on the show, what would you say the funniest scene to film for you was?
Oh, that's tough. That's tough. There's so many. I mean, the one that springs to mind straight away was the scene with, it was on Career Day. So there was a like a page 3 model who'd come in who was from Rochdale, and she'd come in to give a talk, and there was a guy in finance and a fireman or a policeman or something like that. But this girl, I can't remember her character's name. She's called Rachel Kelly in real life. We stayed in touch. She's a lovely, lovely girl. But that was really funny because it's just pure Philip. He thinks he's trying to, for anyone who can't remember or who hasn't seen it, Philip decides that he will ask her out. So, and he's this nerdy, horrible, sweaty 16-year-old, 15-year-old at the time character, and this gorgeous, beautiful model, and he thinks he's got a chance. And so he kind of gives the big bravado, talks to Bolton and Paul and Marley as well, I think, and goes over to ask her out. And as he's apologizing to her, he puts his hands up like this. Someone pushes him from behind, and he ends up attached to some of her appendages. And so shooting that was very fun, not because I got to grab onto some breasts, but because the whole awkwardness and the whole willingness to put himself out there and ultimately be shot down just felt so Philip. It felt so much like this character. And Rachel, who played this model, was so gracious as well, because that could have been really awkward for us to shoot that, but she was just like, yeah, go for it. We're making a cool moment for the show. And I think that's probably the funniest, because it was just daft, and it's pure Philip.
So when it came to leaving the show, because I mean, you were such a big character. So when that kind of conversation came about that, Philip's time was finished, what was your reaction to that? Were you gutted to leave the show, or were you ready to kind of take on your next projects as an actor?
I'd been offered, whilst I was there, I'd been offered another show by the guys who made Waterloo Road. It's a show called Being Victor, which was a BBC Scotland and Shed production. No, ITV Scotland, excuse me, STV production. And so they'd already sounded me out and said that they wanted me to do that, which was good fun. But I would have loved a third series, my third series. I wanted to do the next one. But basically what happened is I think they decided to kind of get rid of, they called it the class of 2010, I think, because we ended up doing a spin-off series a little bit later down the line. But they ended up just kind of getting rid of all of those because they knew that they didn't have enough storylines for us. So we'd just be kicking around in the back of shot, which is fair enough. I'd prefer to be pursuing other stuff than just sat in classroom scenes. But having said that, if they did have some storylines for me, I would have definitely have stayed because it was just so much fun. And at the time, like you say, it was the biggest show on TV. Or certainly a very popular show, and working on it was just a joy. So there's no way that I didn't leave of my own accord. I understood the reasons behind it. We weren't pushed. I wasn't sacked. In fact, they gave me another job, but it was gutting. I wanted the other 20 episodes.
Well, I mean, we saw. I mean, you mentioned obviously the Reunited series that followed with some of the legends that we've all grown to love, and that was great to see what had happened when they left school. So that must have been good for you to kind of be back with your real life friends to actually create this Reunited series.
It was brilliant. In fact, it was when I was doing Being Victor, which was with the same production company. They said, "Oh, we have an idea to do." A kind of a Where Are They Now type series, and people say all kinds of things in telly world, so I didn't think it would happen. But then got a phone call and they said, yeah, we're going to be up in Scotland for a few months and we're going to shoot these episodes, and there's going to be the 7 of you guys in it, and they put us in 2 flats. They put the boys in one flat, the girls in another flat, and we just had the time of our lives. It was ridiculous that was work. We would go and rehearse, and we would come up with different ideas for different moments in the scripts. I created like a video diary on YouTube for it, and we just had the most fun. And it was just a shame with that because I don't think that many people got to see it. It was kind of hidden away a little bit. BBC Three, BBC Online. It never kind of made its way to prime time, which was a bit of a shame because I think we made some cool stuff. But it was just nice to know that there was still an audience out there for those characters that had left in the season before it kind of all kicked off again.
Now, I know since Waterloo Road, you've gone on to do loads of TV work, including Coronation Street and many more. But one of my favourite shows that I just love, Still Open All Hours. I mean, the names that work on that show, I mean, every great actor is on there and it's just brilliant. So how did that come about for you getting the part? Because that must have been a pinch yourself moment.
Oh man, it was amazing. I came from a bit of a comedy background, so I used to write sketches, I used to do stand-up, I put quite a lot of that into Philip. Like, he's quite awkward and gawky and there's quite a lot of comedy in there, but I'd never done a straight out comedy show, and there's not that much comedy that gets made in the UK, to be fair. Like, there's an awful lot more drama than there is comedy, but I'd always wanted to do it. And so my agent know this, and so she would just constantly be banging on the door of the BBC comedy department, and luckily this time they answered and gave me an audition, and I described it at the time to my family as bucket list. It's a BBC live sitcom with David Jason. It's kind of everything that an actor with my kind of background, growing up watching Only Fools and Horses, growing up watching Father Ted, would want to do. We're going to watching Friends, that's the same kind of studio-based sitcom. Would grow up to wanting to do, and it was just brilliant. It was, this was a couple of years ago. It feels like yesterday because of the pandemic. It was one of the last jobs that I did before we kind of had to be inside for so long, and it was just great fun. And again, I've been very, very lucky in my career, and the trust that they put in me joining that cast was just so great, and I had an enormous amount of fun playing it. But I realized, that was when that came out, it was 10 years since my first series of Waterloo Road started to come out, so the gap of 10 years had seen me starting in Waterloo Road on BBC One, primetime playing a nerdy virgin for the BBC. And then 10 years later, I'm on primetime BBC One playing a nerdy virgin for the BBC. So nothing changes in my world, Lewis. Everything remains the same.
I mean, do you know, you mentioned David Jason. I mean, he is my ultimate hero, and everybody who knows me knows he's my hero. I've got like a shrine to the man in my house. I mean, I was lucky enough to meet him last year. I mean, what was he like to work with? Because for me, if I ever got the chance to work with him, I would just be in awe and watching his craft, because you don't get many people like Sir David Jason. He's one of a kind. So what were your experiences?
It was amazing. I mean, unfortunately, I didn't have many scenes with him just because of how the storylines were. My storylines were with the kind of the younger cast. But this is a perfect example of David. I think he knows how people see him. So I think he's very aware that young 30-year-old impressionable actor joining the cast, he knows that that's a big deal for me. And so what he did was on the very first day of rehearsals, we're down at a studio in Hammersmith, and James Baxter, who plays Granville's son in the show, is a friend of mine. I've known him for ages. And I'm talking to James in the foyer, and over walks David, or SDJ as they call him, so David Jason. And over walks David and starts to talk to James, and then James introduces me and David. And I said to David, I said, "Oh, mate, you've been working with this knobhead for so long. I'm so sorry." And I pointed to James, because me and James, I've known him forever. And that can go one of two ways when you've just met someone. Like me, I was just, trying to be quite dry and criticizing me pal. It was all very nice. And he just David looked at me, laughed, punched me on the arm, said, "You plonker," and walked off. And I was like, I rung my dad. I was like, "Dad, Del Boy just called me a plonker." I was like, "It's happened. The world has been solved." But that's kind of, I think he did that for my benefit, knowing that would be a nice insult for us to have. And we had some nice time shooting that. It was Sally Lindsay and Johnny Vegas, and all of it. It was Archie Patel was in it as well. It was just great. It was great fun.
And I mean, one thing that stood out to me was, especially on the reunion, but even more so with the solo interviews, is when I ask people about funny moments, they all mention how hilarious, you are on set and what a funny person you are. So, and I know that comedy is just something that kind of runs in your blood. So have you got any kind of upcoming plans in regards to comedy? Because everybody who's worked with you says that you just literally crack them up on set.
Oh, bless him. That's nice. I think I remember quite early on when I was on set at Waterloo Road, I was like, I made a conscious decision to make sure that the people who were there longer than we were, so that, we have long days as cast, but not as long as the crew, not as long as the guys doing the lights, not as long as hair and makeup. And so I made a conscious decision to try and make everyone's day a little bit nicer. So if people are having a tough day, I'll crack jokes, or I'll do silly stuff, or I'll do a take in a stupid accent, just to make sure that people are engaged and having a nice time. So that's nice that comes across. But as far as plans, it's difficult to plan stuff like comedy. I mean, I do a lot of comedy sketch shows for charity. I've been writing sketch for ages. I've got a couple of sitcom drafts, or certainly comedy pilot drafts, that have been pushed around various comedy departments, TV comedy departments, that I've written myself. But it's just really difficult to make stuff at the minute. And if it happens, it happens. The comedy that, or rather, what you just said there about people having enjoyed having me around and having had a nice time because I've been able to bring a little slice of joy to a day, that's enough for me. I don't need to go and make a TV show. Like, if I'm making a serious TV show and we have a laugh doing it, perfect. I don't, my ego extends not very far. It extends to the people I'm directly with. It doesn't matter that it's not picked up by a comedy department here or there. It's just in that moment, if we're present in that moment, are we having a nice time? Yeah, cool, ace, we've done our job.
No, I mean, it's incredible, because genuinely, I mean, if you see some of the interviews that we've had with the cast, they all mention you. You and Philip Martin Brown are the two that are always mentioned for just either pranking people on set or making people laugh. So it seems like you and Philip Martin Brown are just this comedy duo that people love.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I wouldn't put myself in the same category as Philip Martin Brown, because he's a different breed, that guy. He's just so fun, and again, there's so many characters that were in that cast. I don't mean characters that you see on telly. I mean as far as actors goes.
Yeah.
And Phil was always someone you could get a good laugh out of. And yeah, I think the idea that when you're on a TV job like that and it's 6 months, we're shooting solid for 6 months, we're creating, what was it, 28-hour long episodes each series. You need people like Phil who just can say one thing and just makes your whole day. And so that's definitely Phil's USP. That's what he brings to any set, 100%.
I mean, at the minute, obviously, we're only the restrictions are starting slowly to lift. And I know it's very tough in the world of actor and entertainment and arts. But is there any projects that you've got coming up that you can tell us about? So something that we can expect in the future, or you've got auditions for?
What can I tell you? We are hopefully doing another series of Last Tango in Halifax. The idea is to do another 6 episodes of that. Having said that, Sally Wainwright, who writes that, has just signed on for another 2 projects, so I don't know when that will happen. We were supposed to do more Still Open All Hours last year, but the age of that cast is very, very old, as you well know, I'm sure, Lewis. And so they didn't want to even risk that with COVID flying around. So I don't know if that will happen either. But as far as future projects, this is the longest I've ever been without an acting job. It's the last job I had was in Serbia in March of last year. So it's over a year now, which I'm very blessed that it's taken a global pandemic for me to have a year off acting, because some people aren't as fortunate as me. So I'm aware that there's privilege attached to that, but I'm gagging to get back on a set. I'm still working in the arts. I work at drama schools teaching screen acting. So I've been doing that for the last 4 or 5 years, which is fabulous. But I do get jealous of those guys behind the camera, or rather on the camera. I'm like, that's my job. I want to do that. So hopefully I'll be back on a set very soon.
And do you do like your own podcast? Because I've noticed you've got like a really professional podcast microphone.
I do, yeah. I have a podcast called Behind the Medal with another actor friend of mine, Gary Damer, who is in East is East, and he was in Coronation Street. He was Haley and Roy's young ginger son in Coronation Street forever. But me and him have been friends for a long time. And yeah, we do a podcast. And when lockdown happened, we got cool mics and stuff so that we could do it virtually. And it's great fun. It's that's another outlet for my comedy. All of the adverts that are in the podcast are just adverts that I've made up, and they're little short sketches. And the kind of the basis of the podcast is about running. I'm a keen runner. I've been running for years and years. I've done a number of marathons. I think I'm up to 10 marathons, loads of half marathons, a couple of Ironman triathlons, and basically a lot of the time when you hear about running or stamina sport, you just hear like the glitzy, lovely stuff, and people stood there with medals and pints being like, hey, I did a thing. You don't hear about the time that you piss blood for like 2 days after you've done a triathlon. You don't hear that you will regularly be very nearly caught short when you're running a marathon trying to get to the toilet. So me and Gary just give you the behind the scenes and what it actually takes, all strung along well as well with our take on positivity and mental health awareness, just to get people active and get people, don't have to be marathons, just get people talking and get people communicating and walking or cycling, whatever it is they can do, to make sure that the soul is quenched as much as our physicality. But it's great fun. We've got 30 odd episodes out, and we had Ed Sheeran on there as well. We have an episode with Ed, who's a pal of mine. Yeah, he's a friend of mine. And when he was listening to the show when he was on tour, and he emailed me, he was like, oh man, when I'm in the UK, I want to come on your podcast. I was like, yeah, man, you can do, because you're a very big, popular person. So that would do me nicely. And he gave a great interview, and it was the only interview he's given in the last 3 years on my little podcast. And he's just a lovely guy, and that did really well. That episode's done very well. Instead of just me and Gary shouting at each other, we had a pop star on there talking about running as well, so that was nice.
I just love how casual and chilled you are about all that. You mentioned that you do 10 marathons and all of this running. You're basically Usain Bolt that's best friends with Ed Sheeran. I mean, that's incredible.
Not really. That's it's what I know. You know, it's some people have other skills that they can pass off. I can't play. Oh, I can play a little bit of guitar, but I can't play a musical instrument. I can't sing very well. I can't dance for shit. So it's just what you know, innit? Running is great fun. It's something that I very much enjoy. And I've known Ed since he was a nobody, since he was a specky little kid. He still is a specky little kid. So it's just, you know, just because he's got a few number ones. Oh, shut up, shape of you, whatever. He's just a lad. He's just a normal lad.
Well, I'm checking out this podcast. I want to hear that interview. Where can people find it? Is it a video so we can actually see you, or is it audio on Spotify?
It's all audio, so it's on Spotify or iTunes podcast or Acast. Anywhere you find podcasts, it's on there. Behind the Medal, it's called. Ed's episode is about episode 20, I think, but it's in the title. It says Ed Sheeran. But there's plenty more content on there. We've got interviews with England footballers, other extreme runners. Who else have we got interviews with? Can't remember. But it's mainly just me and Gary talking all kinds of shit. But I think that's what people kind of stay around for, if I'm honest.
Well, did you know, Dean, it's been an absolute pleasure to get you on, because to hear it, you know, more about your career, and your time in Waterloo Road, the fans are going to absolutely love it. And it's great because a lot of stuff you've mentioned I didn't know about. So I'm going to be going to check that out. I think it's incredible. So thank you for being so generous again with your time and coming on the show today.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. My absolute pleasure. It's like I said, you're doing a fabulous job with this and bringing people little glimpses of this show that really took over people's lives for a little while. Is a great testament to you as well. So keep fighting the good fight. You're a very talented man. It's really good that you're doing this for those fans, because Waterloo Road, although it was very big, I think for a lot of people was not kind of quite. It wasn't cool enough for there to be like an official gathering of all of us from back in the day. So this unofficial version is very well received and very well wanted. So thank you, Lewis, from behalf of from everyone involved in Waterloo Road.
Thank you.